Have you ever wondered what it feels like to face an existential threat? The Battle of the Trench in 627 AD was exactly that for the early Muslim community. In the aftermath of the Battle of Uhud, the leaders of the pagan tribes, including the influential Abu Sufyan, found themselves in a state of discontent. Their victory had not yielded the desired results. Islam, far from being deterred by the setback at Uhud, had rebounded with remarkable speed, re-establishing its authority in Medina and the surrounding regions. This resurgence of Islam was perceived as a menacing threat by the pagan leaders. They saw it jeopardizing their economic stability and political dominance in Arabia. The existence of Islam was something they could not reconcile with, and they believed that the death of Muhammad would safeguard their interests and reinstate their supremacy in Arabia. With this objective in mind, they resolved to deliver a final, crushing blow to Medina, aiming to annihilate all Muslims. The strategic goal of the Meccans was not just a simple victory, it was the destruction of the Muslim community, or in other words, to displace Muhammad from his influential position. Driven by this intention and their fervor to compensate for past failures, the leaders of Mecca began preparations for a war of unprecedented scale, a war intended to obliterate Islam once and for all. Over the course of 2 years, the Quraysh managed to assemble a formidable force of 10,000 warriors, the largest Arabian force ever seen until that time. With a display of grandeur and confidence, this impressive army departed from Mecca in February 627 with the goal to capture Medina and extinguish Islam. When the news of this colossal mobilization reached Muhammad and the Muslims in Medina, it struck them with a sense of impending doom. The magnitude of the threat was unmistakable, as they faced the potential of not just defeat, but complete eradication. So, the stage was set for a battle that was not just about territory, but about the very existence of the Muslim community. Imagine an army, the largest ever seen in Arabia at that time, marching towards your city with the sole aim of wiping you out. The Meccan forces, driven by the desire to end the rising tide of Islam, had amassed an army of 10,000 warriors. This was not a skirmish, not a raid, but a full-scale mobilization aimed at the very heart of the Muslim community, Medina. For 2 years, the Quraysh had been preparing for this moment. They had rallied their forces, bolstered their ranks, and now, with a sense of ominous finality, they were on the move. February of the year 627 witnessed this formidable force leaving Mecca, their eyes set on capturing Medina and extinguishing the flame of Islam. Word of this impending threat reached Medina, and the city was gripped by a wave of fear and panic. The Muslims, vastly outnumbered and ill-equipped, were facing a force unlike any they had ever seen. The gravity of the situation was palpable. This was not just a battle for survival, but for their very existence. The Prophet Muhammad, understanding the magnitude of the threat, convened an emergency meeting. The question on everyone's mind was not just about victory, but survival. How could they, a small community, stand against an army 10 times their size? The answer was clear. A conventional battle was out of the question. But then an idea was proposed. An idea that was unconventional, untried, and unknown in Arabia. An idea that could potentially save the city and its people. The idea came from Salman the Persian, a close friend of the Prophet. He suggested digging a trench on the exposed north side of the city. This trench, he believed, could provide the necessary defense against the overwhelming Meccan forces. The Prophet, seeing the wisdom in this strategy, ordered the Muslims to start digging. With determination in their hearts and faith guiding their hands, they began their task. Despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, they knew they had to stand their ground. Faced with an enemy 10 times their size, the Muslims knew that a conventional battle was out of the question. Yet, they were ready to defend their city, their faith, and their way of life, no matter the cost. In times of great peril, it's often the unconventional ideas that save the day. In the midst of the looming threat, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of Salman the Persian, a close confidant of Muhammad. Born and brought up in Persia, Salman had spent a considerable part of his life in Syria and Palestine, acquainting himself with their warfare and siege operations. This experience was about to play a pivotal role in the defense of Medina. Salman was well aware of the natural and man-made defenses of Medina, which safeguarded the city from three sides. However, the north side remained exposed, a vulnerability that could be exploited by the enemy. It was here that Salman proposed an idea that was as unconventional as it was genius: to dig a trench on the exposed north side of the city. In a land where the art of war was often dominated by direct confrontations and fierce battles, this idea was a novelty. This wasn't just about digging a ditch. It was about creating a barrier, a line of defense that would halt the progress of the enemy and provide the city with the time and space it needed to prepare for the battle. The trench would act as a physical barrier, restricting the movement of the enemy's cavalry and infantry, turning the strength of their numbers into a disadvantage. The Prophet, recognizing the brilliance of this unconventional strategy, gave his approval. He understood that the survival of Medina was not just about strength, but also about strategy. It was about using their limited resources in the most efficient way, about turning their weaknesses into strengths, and about creating opportunities where there seemed to be none. And so the Muslims began to dig, hoping that this trench would be their salvation. They worked day and night, fueled by their faith and the hope that this unconventional defense could help them withstand the impending onslaught. It was a race against time, a test of their resolve and unity, a challenge that would determine the fate of Medina and the future of Islam. With the trench dug and the enemy at the gates, the stage was set for the Battle of the Trench. The Meccan forces, a 10,000-strong army, the likes of which Arabia had never seen before, had arrived. Their intent was clear: to destroy the Muslim community and remove Muhammad from his position of authority. They planned to strike a final, crushing blow upon Medina and exterminate all Muslims. The air was thick with anticipation and tension. As the Meccan forces approached, their plan of a swift attack was disrupted. The trench, a new and unconventional approach to warfare in Arabia, stood between them and their aim. Unprepared for this unexpected obstacle, the invaders found themselves at a standstill. The trench, dug on the advice of Salman the Persian, a close friend of Muhammad, acted as a formidable defense. The invading army was left with no choice but to halt their advance. This was no ordinary trench. It was a strategic masterpiece, a barrier that turned the open field into a fortress. The trench was not merely a hole in the ground. It was a symbol of the resourcefulness and resilience of the Muslim community. It served as a physical manifestation of their will to survive and protect their faith. The Meccan forces, confident of their victory, were taken aback. They had anticipated resistance, but not a trench that rendered their numbers meaningless. Their plan of a swift attack was foiled. The trench had turned the battle into a standoff, a waiting game. The invaders were forced to set up camp, turning their intended swift attack into a protracted siege. The Battle of the Trench had begun, not with the clash of swords, but with the strategic brilliance of a trench. The Muslims, though outnumbered and under-equipped, had managed to halt a force that was considered invincible. It was a testament to their resilience, faith, and strategic acumen. The trench held, turning what could have been a swift attack into a protracted siege. The battle was far from over, but the first victory belonged to the defenders. Their unconventional defense had disrupted the enemy's plans and given them a fighting chance. Every battle has its aftermath, a time to count the cost and to reflect on the events that have transpired. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the Meccan forces, once brimming with confidence and the thirst for vengeance, found their spirits dampened. Their grand force of 10,000 warriors, the largest ever assembled by the Arabs till that time, had failed to obliterate Islam or capture Medina. The mighty army, which had left Mecca with great fanfare and aplomb, now withdrew, their mission unfulfilled. The unconventional defense proposed by Salman the Persian, a trench on the vulnerable northern side of Medina, had proven to be an insurmountable obstacle for the Meccan forces. The trench, a novel concept in Arabia, had successfully halted the invading army, safeguarding Medina from being overrun. In the aftermath, the Muslim community in Medina breathed a sigh of relief. They had survived the onslaught of the Meccan forces, their existence still intact. The threat of annihilation that had loomed over them had not come to pass. This was not just a military victory, but a survival and preservation of their faith and community. The Battle of the Trench turned a new page in the history of Islam. It marked the resilience and strategic brilliance of the early Muslim community, who, despite being outnumbered and under-equipped, had managed to thwart a formidable enemy. It showcased their unity, their faith, and their ability to innovate under pressure. The battle also highlighted the leadership and wisdom of Muhammad, the messenger of God, who had accepted the unconventional idea of digging a trench, demonstrating his openness to new strategies and his trust in his companions. His leadership in the face of adversity became a beacon of hope and strength for the Muslim community. In the grand tapestry of Islamic history, the Battle of the Trench stands as a testament to the indomitable spirit of the early Muslims. It is a tale of survival against overwhelming odds, a story of a community that turned the threat of annihilation into a story of resilience and survival. The Battle of the Trench was a testament to the resilience and strategic brilliance of the early Muslim community, a battle where the threat of annihilation was turned into a story of survival. So, what can we take away from the Battle of the Trench? This was a pivotal moment in Islamic history, a battle that demonstrated the resilience, strategic thinking, and survival instincts of the Muslim community. Faced with an overwhelming force of 10,000 warriors, the Muslim community in Medina, led by the Prophet Muhammad, had to think outside the box to protect their city. The Battle of the Trench saw the Muslim community in Medina under siege from the largest force ever assembled by the Arabs at that time. The odds were stacked against them, with their resources heavily outnumbered. Yet they did not falter, nor did they surrender. Instead, they chose to fight to protect their community and their faith. The decision to dig a trench on the exposed side of Medina was an unconventional one, a strategy that was unfamiliar in the Arabian context. This idea came from Salman the Persian, a close friend of the Prophet, who brought his knowledge of Persian and Roman warfare to the table. This move was a game-changer. It forced the invading force to reconsider their attack plan and bought the defenders crucial time. The Battle of the Trench was more than just a military encounter. It was a battle of wills, of conviction, and of survival. It showcased the unity of the Muslim community, their unwavering faith, and their willingness to do whatever it took to protect their city. This battle also highlighted the wisdom and leadership of the Prophet Muhammad. His openness to new ideas, his ability to mobilize and inspire his community, and his unwavering faith in the face of overwhelming odds, all came to the fore. In the end, the Battle of the Trench was a testament to the power of strategic thinking. It showed that even when faced with seemingly insurmountable odds, with the right strategy and unwavering determination, victory is possible. It's a tale of survival against the odds, a testament to the power of strategic thinking, and a reminder that sometimes the unconventional path can lead to salvation.